Great.
Do we need to turn them on or are they always on?
No, they're directional.
They're
So if you
directional?
want to, hear, you just point to it.
Ah, that's
Okay.
the trick. All right. Glasses. All right, so welcome to the December 18th, 2023 meeting of the AVA Community Energy Community Advisory Committee meeting. We will, please, can we take roll call and establish quorum?
Speak closer to.
Welcome to the December 18th, 2023 Community Advisory Committee meeting of AVA Community Energy. We are beginning at 6:10 p.m. If the clerk can please take roll call and establish quorum and verify that everyone is in their posted remote locations.
Great, thank you. Member Landry is on her way in. Would you like me to just?
Yeah. I'm at the door now, finally.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'll take that as a yes. Thank you. Member Hugh. Member Liu. Member Swaminathan.
Yeah.
Member Lakshman. Member Pacheco. Member Souza.
I'm here.
Member Carr. Member Carr.
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Great, thank you. Member Lutz.
I'm here.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Present.
Chair Eldred.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here. Traffic was delightful. If we can now go into public comment, and I would like to remind folks that this item is for persons who want to speak to this body about items that are not on our agenda. If the item is on our agenda, we will hear it at that time. And are there any members of the public who are online with their hand raised or have submitted a speaker card?
There are no members of the public with their hand raised. We did receive a written public comment from Tom Kelly.
Okay,
And
all right.
would
And
you like me to
then,
read that public comment into the record? And do we have hands raised in the person?
okay, let's do Tom Kelly's comment first, and then we'll take the comment from Jessica Tober.
Great, thank you. Okay. Tom Kelly reads, Dear Adrian, below and attached is a summary of the data from AVA's 2022 Power Source Disclosure Report for Bright Choice. The data was compiled by the CEC based on information provided to it by AVA. Here's what the data tell us. 1, EVCE purchased 143 megawatt hours of electricity for retail sales to EVCE's Bright Choice customers for 2022. 2, approximately 25% of that total comes from PCC2 or Bucket 2 renewables located in British Columbia, Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, Washington, Colorado. The California Energy Commission gives EVCE renewable portfolio standard credit for that renewable power. However, since none of that electricity was delivered to or consumed by consumers in California, EVCE had to procure a similar amount of system power for its customers. System power is primarily natural gas and comes with a significant emissions factor. 3, the CEC calculates that based on EVCE's purchases for 2022, Bright Choice was responsible for an astounding 1,141,956 metric tons of carbon dioxide. 4, the US EPA has pegged the social cost of carbon at $190 per ton. If AVA was responsible for paying that for the carbon emissions for which it is responsible, it would cost the agency via its customers $217 million. And a link is provided for that. If you find this unacceptable, then I urge you to step up and speak out. AVA's reserves are healthy enough to easily eliminate all carbon emissions associated with Bright Choice in 2024. Tom Kelly. And Tom Kelly provides a chart of the 2022 Bright Choice data If I can, would you like me to perhaps put that on the screen? It's available on the
It's
website.
available on the website.
It's
okay,
available on
yep.
the website under the public comment tab.
Thank you, Tom. And this is really well laid out. I appreciate it, and I'll go into that farther. At this point, we would like to hear from Jessica Tovar.
I had a quick question. Who is on the Zoom as AVA Board of Directors? Is that you? Okay. You know, just a name that it's always confusing, like who's actually present at any of these meetings when all the cameras are off and a name is not even listed. So I wanted to say that's, to me, very problematic. So what I wanted to address today was in regards to the community innovation grants. I did notice that in the agenda for the board, there is a grant that was granted. However, it's no longer being offered as community innovation grants. I can see that some money was allocated for $100,000, I guess, for 3 years to what looks like a company that sells fancy induction ranges, which, by the way, are about $6,000. And so apparently they've been granted money to do education around induction cooktops. I want to name that our organization was trying to help a small organization who's been going to schools and doing education with students and parents around induction cooking. And this small organization intended to apply for the money, but the application was actually a request for proposals, a very difficult application. A larger organization told this organization that they would apply, and if they got the $100,000, they would give this small organization $25,000 of the grant to work collaboratively. Needless to say that they did not receive that money, but looking at the agenda and seeing who did, I do think that there's 2 problems here. Number one, marketing money should have a separate line item in the budget as marketing, not as community innovation grants. Number 2, community innovation grants, the whole point of that is so community-based organizations can get the resources they need to do the public outreach on whatever the subject is that has to do with energy programs and projects or local development in the community, so that both the agency and the community is working together collaboratively. But what I've been seeing over time is that this agency has completely moved into prioritizing marketing of the agency and really throwing completely the community under the bus, and kind of, prioritizing the selling of things versus actual energy equity and meeting folks who are disadvantaged and dumped on historically, and helping them get the needs that they need in terms of transforming the community and actually making meaningful change in communities that have been historically dumped on. So I wanted to name that. I know I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further public comment.
Thank you. Jessica, will you meet with me after the meeting and let me know a little bit more about that one? All right, thank you. All right, there's no further public comment?
There's no further public comment.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, Vice Chair Hernandez, I just sent you a request to share the document that we keep notes on. If you could share it with me, I don't have it in an easy to access place, and so I want to be able to keep notes there.
Sure.
Thank you.
I believe I did that this afternoon, a link to the Word version that was
Great.
collaborate on.
If you could just resend that, it would be really super helpful.
1 second, please.
And so now we will go into approval of minutes. There is one set of minutes from September and one set of minutes from November. We made the motion, but then moved along without actually voting on it for the September item. So at this point, we would be looking for a new motion and a new second to approve those minutes. And that is for the approval of both. Is that correct? All right, and is there a second? All right, so motion by member Pacheco, second by member Lutz. As we have members of the body participating remotely, all votes this evening will be done as a roll call vote. If the clerk could please do the roll call.
Thank you. Member Landry,
Yes, may I have clarification, Chair Eldred?
You want to bring your microphone down to your face?
Yes, we didn't approve the September minutes before?
We had a motion and a second, but we never took the vote.
Oh, I see, okay, thank you. Well, yes, yes.
thank you. Member Swaminathan,
Yes, here. Yes, approve.
Member Lakshman, Member Pacheco, Member Souza,
Approved for both?
yes,
Yes.
thank you. Member Carr,
Yes, for both.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes, both.
Chair Eldridge,
Yes,
minutes are approved.
thank you. All right, now that we're up. The chair report this month is going to be quite short. I was not at the last meeting for the board. Vice Chair Hernandez was able to come in later in the meeting and we just lost him. So I'm assuming he'll jump back on. We might be able to circle back around to that, but he was able to show up and report out. Ed, are you able to give any feedback from that meeting?
Yes, I provided the feedback that we talked about briefly and jumped on just quickly for those minutes during the call and reported out what we discussed here and our concerns about the branding and what have you. And so we covered that information. I came towards the end of the meeting, so I have nothing else to report.
All right, and there's a more thorough report. We'll send it out to everyone. The next meeting of the board is it is entirely consent items. Unless something is pulled, we will be requesting that some of them are pulled, and then they will be going into closed session. So in theory, this meeting shouldn't be really long. I do know that some of the bigger items on there are things that we're going to be discussing tonight. So there are some things on the consent agenda to take a look at for Wednesday's meeting. If we're not taking a stance or discussing those items here, then you're welcome to show up and speak on those things, identify yourself as you will. But tonight we're going to focus on the parts of the agenda that we felt like needed more information. So with that, we're going to go straight into CAC member reappointments and guide updates, which is an action item. And ask that I would bet Alec is going to give us an update on the feedback that he's heard and where we're at in this process.
Thanks, Chair Eldred. Good evening, everyone. Yes, so this item should not come as a surprise to most of you since I've spoken to every member of the committee about this item. It's divided into two parts. The first is the reappointment of current eligible CAC members who have confirmed their interest in being reconsidered to serve an additional term. And then the second part are some updates to the CAC guide that correspond to recent discussions that we've had with the board and also previous decisions with the board. Just as a quick refresher, the CAC guide is kind of like the rule book for the committee's operations. And this is the first time we've gone through a full term cycle with the guide. So this is the first time that we've had the opportunity to update it since in the last about 2.5 years. And there were many board decisions that related to that. And so that's what the update is. And those are all spelled out in the staff report.
Point-
And just
Point
for,
of clarification?
yeah,
So my understanding was that we had made it really clear that the CAC had quite a bit of feedback on the update of our operations and as well as the process for selection, and that there wasn't going to be any changes made on that except for the staggering of terms, and that we were going to be working those out with a committee of, as we determined it, right? And so, and then staff said that they would like to just get this next set of appointments in, and then we would be working on functional changes. So can you just give a quick outline of what those changes are?
Sure.
Because it's just, if it varies away from what we had discussed with the board, then that would be good.
yeah, I'd be happy to go through what some of those changes are. And also, I should have mentioned before, with the first part on the reappointment, I did personally contact every member of the CAC to seek their, to seek their interest in reappointment. And all but one member was ultimately interested in seeking reappointment. There are 1 or 2 members who are interested, but they're kind of waiting for some scheduling and other personal life matters to resolve. But they still asked to be included on the list of those who are being reappointed.
Great.
So that's for the first part. So yeah, sure, I'd be happy to go through what the updates involve.
So reallocation of seats.
Yes.
We've covered that one. The
Okay.
at-large you should cover.
Yep.
Actually, just go through them. Go for
Sure.
it.
So there's the for the general public's awareness. The first of the updates, the proposed updates, are a reallocation of the seats on this committee. And that is to reflect the change in our service area, the growth in AVA's service area, with the inclusion of the city of Stockton. That means that the service area region, remember, this is a regionally organized committee, and so the San Joaquin region now has a larger percentage of customers, or will once it's being served. And so we had to reallocate seats to reflect that. And that meant that the San Joaquin region gains a seat while the South Service Area region loses one. And we discussed this a lot with the board, an ad hoc committee, an executive committee. So it's been discussed quite a bit. And again, for the public's awareness, the committee seats are allocated similar to the weighted board vote provision that's in the Joint Powers Agreement. So remember, each jurisdiction gets 1 vote on the board, but there is a provision that's hardly been used, if ever been used, for a weighted vote to reconsider a decision that's based on the retail energy sales within that jurisdiction. And so the seats on the CAC are allocated similarly, which is why, for example, the northern service area region, which includes Oakland, has more seats than the other regions because we have more customers there and there's more energy consumed there on their behalf. So that's the first update, is to reallocate seats.
Do you want questions as we go through, or at the end?
I think it'll be better for me to just run through these real quick. I mean, I defer to the chair.
Then do them at the end. Yeah, go for
Okay.
it.
So then there's the appointment of the 2 at-large seats. So again, this is the first term cycle that we've gone through with this organization of the committee. So it was the first time that we had these 2 at-large seats. And according to the CAC guide, those seats were to be appointed by the Alameda County Mayor's Conference. And what staff found was that it was very difficult to align schedules with the mayor's conference. Also, given the fact that the service area has grown to include a sizable portion of San Joaquin County, whom the Alameda County mayors don't represent, it's less representative. So, the update is, the suggested update is for the at-large appointments to be made by the board of directors, which includes board members from the jurisdictions in the San Joaquin area. And then feedback from the board was also to limit those appointments to 2 consecutive terms, and that was due to concerns that the northern service area region might have an imbalance of members because it was likely or thought to be likely that folks from Oakland would be more likely to be appointed to those at-large seats. And there's already that distribution that's supposed to be creating a balance of representation. So that's why the suggestion came from the board members during the executive committee in particular to limit that to 2 consecutive terms. The next item was the appointment timeline for vacancies. The original guide suggested that vacancies be made within 90 days of when they're announced. And the update is to fill vacancies on an annual basis unless they're required to achieve quorum. The reasoning behind that was because members may leave this body at any point they wish, and doing a round of appointments is actually quite involved, requires a lot of staff time and time from our board members, both those of the specific region where someone may have left, and also the board in total at large. They have to appoint those members to fill those vacancies. So you could imagine a scenario where there were kind of, if people leave every once in a while, then we're kind of constantly in a state of having to fill those vacancies rather than doing it more efficiently once a year. The next update was staggering CAC terms. This was so that we don't have a complete changeover of members each year. So the suggestion was to have more or less half of the members finish 1 year and then alternate the next year. So again, so that we can preserve some of the membership each year. And then the last update was really just administrative updates to reflect previous board decisions for the most part. So those would include like updating the staff contact that's mentioned in the guide. It was to include a 6-month residency grace period for members who move out of the service area with the intention of moving back. That was something that the executive committee suggested, so that was added here. And then other administrative updates include those to reflect the Ava Community Energy brand change, and CAC member stipends, which were already discussed and approved by the board in a previous decision, things of that sort. So those are all of them. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you. That was really helpful. So before we go to discussion among us, I would like to see if there are comments from, and thanks, Alex. I really appreciate you running through it. If there are comments from members of the public, or if we've received any written comment on this item.
We have not received any written public comment, and there are no hands raised at this time.
Excellent. Are there any members present who would like to make a comment?
I have more questions.
Great.
And forgive me if I missed it. I want to make sure that the alternates is still included in this makeup of the Community Advisory Committee. For obvious reasons, I think that it's been successful in terms of prepping newer people to step into a more regular role in the Community Advisory Committee. And then I think I'm trying to understand, is the at-large seats, folks who are at-large going to remain in the Community Advisory Committee? And I understand the mayor's conference, and we're no longer going to do that. It's going to be the board, but is Jim and Ed still going to continue on? I want to make sure about that. And then, yeah, I just I just want to just name, I think it's been, it's just very important in general for community people to be involved in the process of what this agency does moving forward, and really emphasizing that you folks as Community Advisory Committee people, weigh in and make sure that you're holding the agency accountable to, we pay for electricity here, but that money comes back to the community. So I wanted to just emphasize that, and then leave you with those questions that I had. Thanks.
Thank you.
That was really super helpful. Do you want to answer the alternates question?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah. Thanks for those questions. So the first question about the alternates, yes, there will still be the alternate seats. That's unchanged. Those seats are currently vacant. So once, assuming that this is approved by the board and we have the committee seated in January, the next order of business for staff is to do an appointment process to fill those seats. Because we have the alternate seats, and then we'll have one other, the East region, we expect it'll have a vacant seat as well. So we're going to do a round of appointments. The second question about at-large seats, yes, so the at-large seats are still there. Both current at-large members, they indicated their interest in remaining. So what will change is that they can only serve for 2 consecutive terms. Other members, the regional members serve, they have the option of serving up to 4 terms.
All right, so I'm going to do a stack because I'm sure we're going to have just a rousing discussion. I'm going to start with Member Souza. And I've got the in-room stack.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I raised my hand, but I do have some questions. So the audio cut out when he said that the regular advisory committee members, the term, I guess term limit, is that what the term is? Was for how many years was it? And second, what would it be, what would happen if, for instance, a seat couldn't be filled or replacement couldn't be found? I'm just curious as to how that works. Not, I'm not concerned at all about their decision-making, but I'm just kind of curious as how this works because I've never been through it before. Thank you.
May I?
Yeah, we're going to encourage this.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Member Souza, for those questions. So with regard to the term limits, all members currently have the option of serving for 4 terms, each of 2 years each. So terms are for 2 years and you can serve 4 consecutively. The proposed change here is for the at-large seats to be limited to 2 terms. And to the question of what if a seat can't be filled, no one will serve in it until it is filled. We would, usually when we've previously held an application period under the current structure, we have about a month-long application period, and then we do robust outreach. We work with our board members and with the members of this committee to reach out to the community to let folks know that seats in their regions are open. And if that should close and we don't get enough applicants, or the applicants that we do get ultimately don't get appointed for whatever reason, perhaps they're ineligible or perhaps they just don't receive the appointment from the board, because ultimately it's up to the board to decide, then we would probably have to open another application period. And we would take direction from the board on how to proceed, but the seat would be unfilled until someone was appointed to it.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. That was really.
Sorry?
When is the application going
Q1 of this coming year.
All right, and so we're going to move now. Is there any other folks who wish to make comment or question, feel free to raise your hand. Seeing no hands raised at the moment, I got we're going to start with you. We're going to move around the room this way.
What I wanted to address, I want some clarification. Because remember, Susan did ask this question, so you're saying the at-large would be limited to 2 terms, did I?
That's the proposed update to the guide, yeah.
So I want to understand what that means in terms of years, because I read something here that it's, that everyone would be limited to 8 years. So can you clarify what the difference is?
Yeah, so if this update were to be approved, the at-large members would be limited to 4 years.
Oh, okay,
2 two-year terms.
okay. Okay, and then, thank you. And then the other clarification I have here, it's also saying, pending board approval, approximately half of the CAC seats will be assigned 1 or 2-year terms in 2024. So
Yeah.
could you elaborate?
Yes, I'd be happy to, and
Yeah.
that's a good detail to pick up on. So that's the mechanism by which we would stagger the seats.
Right,
So half of the committee members would be assigned at random
Right,
a
right.
1-year seat, while the others would get the normal 2 years. Those that would be assigned the 1-year seat would not count as a term.
no, okay. And then, lastly, for those of us who have served on this commission, a number of us, have we completed 1 term? It's a little confusing with this new guideline. How does our existing tenure integrate with this new policy, please?
Yeah, the same as before. So the time previously served on the committee would still count towards the term limits. Is that what you're asking?
I think so. So everybody here has served one term, or?
Different members have served different terms. I don't have it committed to memory
Okay, all
who's
right.
served for how long.
Okay.
But we did go through this, and so everyone was eligible for another 2-year term.
Yep.
Okay.
And we can follow up with you on start date. I would suspect that the 3 members here might be entering our final 2-year term.
Yes, that might
Yeah,
be the
that's,
case.
yeah, okay, that's what I
Yeah.
was getting at. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for those questions, Cynthia. Member Pacheco?
That was a good report back, Alex, thank you. So the fact that you didn't bring up that this was discussed, I'm guessing it did, but there was some discussion, or I was bringing it up, about onboarding for the alternatives, about whether or not any kind of conversations those could be facilitated between the primary and the alternative.
The alternate?
Just to kind of like, hey, here's what's showing the ropes a bit. And then also about making sure there's good communication for when primary can't make it, maybe some outreach can be done to the chair, either by the primary or by the staff, like, hey, can you really try to make it to the meeting so that we have someone actually making the meet? And, I don't know, there's Robert's rules, I don't know, there may be some limitations, but just some better communication between the primaries and the alternatives, just to make sure people are there and maybe get a little grounding or whatever, if they haven't been regularly attending.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. Yeah, we certainly would want to help get them up to speed on the operations. Haven't discussed what type of onboarding we would do with the new CAC members. As far as communications go between active members and the alternates, staff would recommend that the members communicate directly with the alternates when they expect to not be available. We might encourage the alternates who are appointed to attend some meetings, maybe not necessarily to participate, but to observe initially, to help get them up to speed and see how these types of things work.
Can follow-up question? Yeah, Chair? Okay, and then also, sorry, I missed last meeting. And
Do I normally? Yeah, just
I am trying to be good. Trying to end the year good. Then also there was some discussion about possibly having a stipend for the alternatives, so they can at least be more motivated to show up for meetings where they wouldn't have a vote. And that was something that was brought up 2 or 3 meetings ago. That sounds like also something that was maybe not considered or discussed.
If I, we've said we'd like a bunch of these issues to come before the CAC or a subcommittee or something to work these things out. I believe this proposal is mostly looking at administrative changes that we need to make, or, well, okay, some administrative changes we need to make and some additional ones to be able to get folks into seats, at which point we'll take a look at some of the other changes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. And the stipends, you know, those have to be approved by the board, so that would
Sure.
require board action.
Okay, thank you, that's all, thanks.
Right, you-
Okay. Remember, let's,
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I like being restricted as an at-large member, but again, not having to come to these meetings might be nice. So having the at-large number of terms shortened feels like an attack on me in some ways. But I'm not going to push on that one. I would ask, why wasn't it considered that the CAC should be expanded as the same way the board is expanded? So the board is expanded because we've got 3 new cities coming in. It seems like we could have expanded the CAC for the new region at least. So I'm not sure why, was it ever discussed about expanding the CAC to match the board expansion? Why was it decided that the CAC should stay the same? So that's a question, and I don't know if we want to address it as the
I'm happy to address
CAC. And another concern that I brought up at the last meeting was there's no method in the guide that I read. I haven't read it recently, but I don't think that's changed, that attempts to make sure that specific communities and interests are represented on the CAC. And by interests, I mean labor, I mean environmental justice, environmental advocacy, seniors, faith communities, disabled. There's a whole set of interests that I would think would be naturally concerned about electricity and how it's provided and the labor behind it and the cleanliness of it and all that. And there's no mechanism in the guide for how to make sure that wide range of interests is represented.
so very specifically, this is the one that we said we're going to move into committee because we really, to the CAC and into a committee, because as far as I can tell, we are all in agreement on that.
Okay.
So how to implement that, what that looks like, that kind of thing, they just don't have time to do that before the January appointments.
Okay.
And so that is an item that will be coming back
Okay.
to have us work it out. Is that accurate, Alex?
That's my understanding. I mean, it's ultimately up to the board what the board wants to discuss.
But to bring the
But-
proposal to the board. And the chair has definitely said that she would like our feedback on that.
Okay, so that's to come.
Yeah.
Expect that in the January, February, March meeting or something?
I'm working on timeline,
Okay.
working on timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just elaborate on that point, I'll take these in reverse order. The suggestion to identify specific constituencies, demographic groups, et cetera, interests, and within the community, that could be a very involved process to determine who those are. And I think the board wants to be careful in embarking on that process.
Right.
Whereas we want to make sure this committee is seated and ready to rock in January.
Okay.
So we, for worse, we'll have the committee seated and then
And we can
and then
discuss
those
it.
types of discussions can occur. Your question, Member Lutz, of was it considered to expand the CAC like the board? Yes, it certainly was. That was discussed at length at previous board meetings and executive committee meetings.
But not at the CAC.
Can't recall if we discussed it in this body.
We
it's-
did, and that was part of the discussion where the board said they would like to get folks seated because staff said they couldn't deal with it before everyone was seated. There just wasn't time. I feel like that was an accurate assessment.
Okay.
Because that was like October or something like that, and the applications need to start in January. I offered to do it, I was turned down. And so what the board said was, do a couple quick administrative updates. I feel like this goes beyond that. And then we will come back and the CAC or a subcommittee somehow will work on this and make a recommendation. So I'm not dropping it.
Okay.
We will not drop it.
Okay.
Okay. I promise.
And then, I don't know if it was a question about the at-large, the term limits on at-large. I think
Right.
there's the thinking behind and the purpose behind the regional allocation of seats is to strike a balance across the service area. And there are concerns that
Too many of us.
Oakland in particular, or the kind of like, the northern Alameda County region will dominate the committee.
But we don't have them. We have two at-large members, one from two different districts. So we have Hayward and where are you?
Oakland.
Oakland. So we have Hayward and Oakland. Those are not both North County.
Excuse me, I think it's San Leandro in Oakland.
It's hands up. All right. So we have 4 districts. If it wants to be balanced, we could have 2 alternates for our 2 at-large members, and then everyone can go back to being well represented.
So there are five, there are 5 regions.
5 regions, then we could have 5. Ed, this is, I feel, something that requires further discussion and that we aren't. Yeah, all right, Ed?
No worries. No, I appreciate the board consideration to keep the at-large seats. Yeah, better understanding the term limits, differentiation, maybe because it gets stacked one way or another way. That is to the board's discretion. I think as long as there's good representation on the CAC from the regions, I think that's critical, that balance, and specifically the mayor of San Leandro really want to have a San Leandro representative on this advisory committee because there's a San Leandro seat there, of course. So that's why I was also being asked to maybe look at that option to maybe stay, but it's important to have representation. I don't want to push back too hard on the differentiation of the time limits between at-large or the regional leads. I think there has to be a balance, but don't understand really the concern about the term limits myself. I'm also happy to volunteer for that 1-year term. That's something I guess is another recommendation down the line.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
All right, I've got some, but I should go last. All right. Okay, so what happens with the at-large members after the 2 terms? Can they be appointed to the regular body with a preference if they'd like to move into their regional seat? Or something like that? What is the proposal?
I don't think that was considered, but I would imagine that if they wanted to apply during an application period to be considered for appointment by the board, I don't think they'd be prohibited from applying.
Okay.
Whether they be appointed or not would be up to the board.
All right, so I have a proposal. I'll talk out my thinking real quick, but my proposal is that the board approves 2A and 2D and the portions of 2E that are items that have been previously approved by board decisions, like the brand name change and the member stipends, but that the issues in 2B, 2C, and the portions of 2E that deal specifically with residency come before the CAC or a dedicated subcommittee to come up with these and other recommendations for changes. And we can I mean, you can even short-term approve the 6-month residency grace period, but that needs to come back to us. And so I'm going to run through my theories on this. The vacancy appointment timeline, we're not going to have to deal with in the first 90 days because the staff is going to be filling those vacancies. The applications are going to start in January. There's time for us to work this out. How we deal with that, I think, is something that we need to discuss. I really feel like the at-large appointments need further discussion, and that we can bring a presentation, like a recommendation to the board, and they can approve it or not. I do, so the portions of 2E that deal with residency are coming up around some specific concerns around homelessness and housing instability. And I feel like the concept here is a really good one, but I'm not sure that it addresses, like this proposal addresses it necessarily as thoroughly as that issue should be addressed. There's a number of other issues that we have already identified that we'd like to discuss surrounding demographics and constituent group representation and those kinds of things. And so I really want to say functionally approve 2A, 2D, and 2E, but the issues in 2B, 2C, and the portions of 2E that deal specifically with homelessness and housing instability come before the CAC. I can email you that wording. And on to B, I guess I did have one more question on there. Currently, does the board or a subcommittee of the board receive all applications that have been submitted, or does staff select from those applications and submit only their recommendations to the board?
Oh, staff doesn't, staff vets for eligibility, which is mostly just a residency requirement or owning a business for 5 years or more. But staff does not pre-select.
Okay, great. And so the board would receive all applications that were submitted, and then the board or subcommittee of the board would make those recommendations once eligibility had been established.
So once eligibility, as we did it previously, once eligibility is established, the board members from the specific region in which there's an applicant is applying for a seat in that region, those board members nominate the candidate of their choice, and then that candidate would go before the board for approval.
Oh, great. Okay, that was a really helpful understanding. Okay, so could you repeat that?
Sure, sure. So the applicants who apply, their applications are considered by their regional board directors for a nomination that would then go to the board for approval. So it's not like every single application goes to every board member. Since it's done regionally, those regional directors, usually it's about 3 directors, they'll pick from among the applicants within their region to nominate someone to be considered by the full board for approval.
All right, I'm going to reframe my motion and then see if anyone wants to second it, because I want to clarify something. So I move that the CAC support staff recommendation on items 1 and 2A in its entirety, 2B regarding having the board of directors select the at-large members, but not with the term limits, that we approve 2D in its entirety, and that we approve the portions of 2E that deal with previously approved board decisions, but that the other items specifically dealing with residency, term limits for at-large appointments, the vacancy appointment timeline, come back to the CAC to be discussed in conjunction with the other items that we are supposed to bring to the board as a recommendation, including demographics and constituent representation. That was a long sentence.
And
Okay, I'll second that.
Is there discussion on this, including public comment?
make sure
John?
the discussion on alternates and things like stipends is included in your list.
Yeah.
Which you didn't mention, but.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We go for it.
Okay, so, for me,
Yeah, can you put that right into
yeah,
your mouth?
I
Thanks.
will. Thank you. For me, I think we need to vet this a little bit more. And I think that, while I support your recommendations, it may be, I don't know, a little bit, I don't want to use the word convoluted, but I think to say we're going to approve these sections and not approve these sections, I just think we need to work on the document more. And maybe we can pull it from the, maybe, I don't know if you can pull it, but maybe pull it from the consent.
We can pull it from the consent agenda, but certain things have to pass for us to be able to seat the next board. And so I was suggesting that we approve just those changes and the rest we bring to further discussion. So that we can seat more CAC members in January with the appointment.
So what is the section on just the appointment of the CAC? 'Cause
That's section, so I can show you if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, come here.
Section 1 is the appointment. And then in the staff report, there's a list of all of those who are seeking appointment.
Right,
So that's just section 1 of the.
okay. So section 1 would be, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Can we share screen so we can see it all together? I'm sorry for the interruption. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not that. It's this one.
Well, that is section 1.
So if you can pull up agenda C5, consent item 6 onto the board. Okay, so my recommendation is to approve number 1, right? And on number 2, take number 1 as a whole. Number 2.
Can you clarify? You mean A, 2A?
Sorry, 2A, apologies.
Thank you.
To put these
Just
back
trying
on
to take
the screen.
notes.
Nope. All right, 2A in its entirety, right? On 2B, to move forward with the, having the 2 at-large members appointed by the Board of Directors instead of the Mayor's Conference, because that was too hard. They'd already discussed that. But that the part about limiting to 2 consecutive terms is something that we discuss further at a later time. On 2C, when we look at vacancy appointment timeline, that we talk a little bit about that too, since it's not going to be time pressing, right? And then D, support that. We've already discussed that ad nauseum. And then on E, approve the administrative updates so long as so the previously approved board decisions. So that's just reflecting decisions that have already been made, that we've already weighed in on, that the board already made. But that there's this one other period around the 6-month residency grace period that we should approve at the time for right now. But I would also like to discuss that more, specifically with concerns regarding housing instability and homelessness. And I just want us to have the opportunity to have a more thorough discussion around how we deal with homelessness from a residency perspective. But that wouldn't hold anything up, right? We can approve all those things and still discuss those items at a later date. I hope that was clarified for everyone, what my goal is. You don't have to agree with it. It's just my motion. It was supported by, seconded by Member Souza. Ed, you have your hand up? And then
Thank you. I'm just taking notes, making sure I'm following through on your motion and just understanding we're gonna move to accept item.
I can type it out in there.
Yeah, I typed it out. So item 1, as is, 2A, all, 2B, without the term limit constraints, 2C, to discuss further. I don't know if that's to be approved or not. I think you want more discussion. So you might want to say, are you going to approve 2C or you're not approving 2C?
No.
So no, okay, not approved, not included in the recommendation. 2D approve, 2E with the previously approved items, but to discuss the residency further.
Yeah, I think even just approve 2E, but bring the residency portion back as part of further discussion.
Okay, supportive, thank you.
Member Landry?
I just want to clarify, we are, previously, and, I can see it both ways. Previously, where was the section here about, term limits?
For the at-large members, it's under item 2B.
Right, and for the general,
There's no change to the existing structure on that. That is just, these are just the changes, not the whole guidelines. So those changes are not, there are no changes to that item. There's a change to staggering it, which is how we did it initially, right? And then yeah, but as far as the 8 years, that's the same as before.
Do you have a strikeout and underlined version of the guide with
No.
these proposed changes?
No. They're contained in a draft resolution that's included in the staff report.
But not here, not in the one.
No, but it's available online.
But no, it wasn't provided for us as part of our discussion.
Right.
Okay, so is there further discussion? All right, so seeing none, actually, I can't see if there's hands raised or not. But there's not. All right, so seeing none, if you want me to do the motion again, I can, but I feel like we're pretty clear on that. And we could do a roll call vote.
Great.
If you don't like it, it's okay.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Abstain.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Lakshman. Member Pacheco.
Yes.
Member Souza.
Yes.
Member Carr. Member Carr.
You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Chair Elder.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, we're going to, there's a reason I always do this online. Okay. And really, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to move now into item C6, which is an amendment to administrative procurement policy. And who will be presenting that?
I'll be presenting on that. Apologies, I can't join you there in person, but I'm a bit under the weather. But happy to share a quick summary of this particular item. This is a consent item for the board meeting on Wednesday. This is related to an amendment to our administrative procurement policy. As a very quick summary, we have done a series of amendments to this policy. This policy was first put in place in February of 2018, so more or less at the start of our agency's inception. Thank you, Adrian, for pulling that up. We have done a series of amendments, throughout our existence to this policy for various updates. I think this is our 8th or so amendment. This one primarily addresses 3 things as summarized right here. We are, of course, making a name change to Ava Community Energy throughout the document, so memorializing that appropriately. So we are making a reference to our energy risk management policy. Historically, we've had some reference in our administrative procurement policy and separately references in our risk management policies. And due to the nature of volatility in the markets, we are concerned with there being a mismatch in timing with our energy risk management policy versus our administrative procurement policy. And so we're removing any specifics in the procurement policies to ensure that there's consistency between the 2 documents that guide our hedge and procurement authorities. And then the third one is language related to competitive bidding and prevailing wage requirements in 2 sections throughout the document. So those are the 3 topical areas. Adrian, if you want to scroll to page, let me just make sure I have the right. I'm trying to see which page of the PDF this is, but what I want to get to is the red line of the actual attachment. Yes, here we go. So I don't want to necessarily scroll through this whole thing, though happy to spend time where it's necessary. As noted, you'll see various references to East Bay Community Energy change to AVA. I think that's pretty straightforward. In section 3, and then there's one more section towards the end, you see reference changes to risk management policy. And then you can see in section, so that's covering sort of the topic number 2 that we've adjusted, and then topic number 3 related to prevailing wage competitive bidding, you can see in section 1.2. If you scroll a little, scroll further down, please, Adrian. Yeah, keep on going. Yeah, here. If you can just pause there, you can, sorry, a little bit higher. There you can see in subsection 1.2, changes related to competitive bidding and public works. This is not necessarily a new requirement. I think it's more of legal disclosure in terms of how we approach things. So it is not a substantive change to our procurement practices, I'll say. So that's one reference, and then I'll just make one more reference and then turn it over for questions. If you can scroll down, Adrian. I'm all the way in section V, section Roman numeral 8 called public projects. Section, yeah, Roman numeral 8, quite a bit further. Yeah, sorry, up a little bit, just a little bit further up. Keep on going up. There we go. So just yeah, this blue wording here at the very end. So that's related to some of the public works related items that we have. Again, this is not a substantive change to our procurement practices, but really stating that we comply with Labor Code section 1720. So again, not a meaningful or practical change, but more of legal disclaimer language that we've included in our procurement policy here. I think that's everything. I'm happy to take any questions.
That was super helpful, Howard. Thank you. We'll go first to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item that was received in writing? Or are there any members of the public online with their hands raised?
Yes. Yes, we do have one member of the public with hand raised. Bradley Cleveland, you're recognized for 3 minutes. Bradley Cleveland, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
There it goes. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm glad to see there's an explicit recognition of prevailing wage, and I support the adding that to the procurement policy. But I also am glad to know that the board is considering a more extensive policy, developing model language that talks about a broader range of labor standards and environmental policies. The language I think that is now being discussed talks about a more proactive environmental stewardship language and inclusion of high road maintenance and operation jobs, and a broader application of community scale projects. So I support both this language and the ongoing discussion being supported by a coalition of environmental and labor groups for a broader policy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have we received any other written correspondence or members of the public with their hand raised online?
We have not received written public comment, and there are no hands raised at this time.
All right, we'll turn now to see if there are any members of the public who want to make any comment. They do not. So with that, is there any discussion or questions on part of the members of the CAC? Okay, Member Pacheco.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Just some clarifying questions. I see under 6.1, the change to 6.12 or the addition to 6.12, 1.3, which is already existing, states that the previous statement doesn't disallow additional considerations being considered as part of the contract. That's good. My question is whether or not on public projects under 2, the addition there, I don't see laid out that same clarification that additional considerations cannot be required. I just want to make sure that it's the same with both of these additions where additional requirements can be considered.
I caught most of that. There was a little bit of an echo in the room. I'm just looking at I'm looking for the language that you're referencing. So I'm comparing the 1.2 section under general contractual services procurement with Roman numeral 8 under public projects. Can you just re-articulate for me what the specific language was that you didn't see in one of the sections that you were considering?
Sure, and apologies, I didn't move the microphone. I'm not used to these things.
There we go. That's much better. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. So the language that and it may be in here, but I'm looking through this for the first time and I'm not seeing it pop out. And maybe it's in there. So the language of 6.13, pre-existing language states nothing in this section prohibits the use of a more stringent procurement method than the one indicated by Table 1. At his or her discretion, the CEO may direct that an agreement for general contractor services is awarded through formal bidding process described therein, but that statement says that you can have additional besides just what's in 1760. You can have additional conditions besides what's in 1760. On 7.2, the new additional language.
8.2.
8.2, thank you. Yes, you're right. 8.2. I'm not seeing, and again, it may be in here, any language like 6.13 that just makes clear additional considerations may be added to the contracts or in the process. I'm not seeing the equivalent of 6.13 in under 8. And it may be there or may be inferred, but I would like to see it specified if it's not.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. You said 6.13.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
6.13, section 6 is emergency procurement, correct?
Combined services and well, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but I'm seeing that as combined services and purchases.
So section 6 is right there. Just stop, Adrian, if you could. Section 6, scroll up slightly. Yep, stop right there. Section
go-
6
go-
is emergency procurement, so I'm not sure what
Okay, so
1.3 is
I may
from.
be reading the document wrong. What I'm talking about is under general contractual services procurement, which the last number that I see is in the preceding page. That was 6. But it's general contractual services procurement, right before the boxes that break out the dollar fiscal amount and what verbiage is required there. Let me see.
I'm not quite finding the language that you're writing, to be honest.
It may, I'm not saying, yeah, on the hard copy printout, there's no numbered pages.
At the top, right?
Yeah, but under general contractual services procurement, which is,
Yeah.
there
So
isn't a
unless-
section 6 there that at least the 613 that I see there.
Yeah, sorry, maybe, Adrian, I think you're just scrolling up and down.
Yeah.
Can you scroll up? I think it may be further up. And I'll,
Actually, I think it's after that.
okay, then, yeah, I'll take Jessica's,
Before where this table is. General contractions.
yeah, right before table.
After what we were looking at.
Oh, I think, let's see here.
Did I pass it?
Yes, it's under general contractual services procurement, right before table 1 and 2.
You're saying section
There we go. There we go.
1.1.3, not,
So yeah, sorry for maybe some misdirection there. So on the hard copy, and I'm looking up there to see that it's the same, yeah. Okay, yeah, so what I'm seeing and agreeing with is 1.3, which just, makes clear that the addition of 1.2 additional considerations can be required. I'm not seeing similar language, and again, I was just going through this while you were talking under 8 public projects, there's the new language, and I'm not seeing equivalent language to that 1.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. I mean, I don't think it needs to be explicitly stated that you can use more stringent procurement methodologies. That is something I'll ask our general counsel about, why we've specifically felt the need to actually state it in section 1.3. To me, that reads as sort of general disclaimer language. But I don't think there would be there's a reason that it specifically sits in that section and shouldn't apply to other sections. And to me, it feels implied, but again, I would want to confirm that with our general counsel. So I don't think it's very explicitly not noted elsewhere, but that's just my quick feedback too. I'd like to follow up on that.
Well, so yeah, so thank you. And again, I don't suspect anything nefarious here or whatnot, but just knowing that when you see something explicitly called out and then it's not at another spot, you can't take for granted that a year or 2 or 3 down the line that it's going to be considered by whoever's running the show. So again, with having only reviewed this right here and now, I would like to hear why that's not called out. And I would also like just to state, like, I would like to see something explicitly saying you can use additional factors in choosing your contract winner for the public projects.
Yeah, I think it's a fair clarification. I will note none of the changes we've made, I would say, refer to this particular section at all. So I suspect it's oversight, and I would not think that our proposal for edits here should be held up based off this clarification. But with that said, I think it's, you know, it's a practical question, and certainly I will seek to get some
Okay.
clarification from general
Well,
counsel.
thank you, Howard, but maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but on the hard copy that I have here, under 8 public projects, there is new language. The new language is 2. So I do see a change in that section, which is what flagged this for me. I also have another question, comment about the new language, but my first question, comment was making sure that additional factors could be considered.
Yes, but I'll just say 2 is clarifying language of we will comply with Labor Code Section 1720, which generally is, you know, sort of disclaimer language, a Labor Code section that we need to comply with, we're going to comply with. So I don't think the absence of a reference to Section 1.3 or, you know, or not should preclude us from approving this language, I guess is my point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, as clarification, are you good with moving forward on this? Howard, would you be able to try and find out that answer? And then if there's an issue on this, we'll request the item be pulled and heard at the board meeting. Or if we have not yet received an answer, we'll ask that this issue be pulled and heard at the board meeting. And if you've gotten an answer back, then
Well,
we
so
won't.
look, I guess because I don't see a problem with the other issues, and I don't even necessarily see a problem with this, but until there's an answer. But I would potentially be good with voting to approve with the exception of with the exception of 8.2 to get an answer about why there isn't additional language. Is that?
We don't even have to vote to approve, but if there's an issue with that language, we can bring it up at the board meeting.
Oh, okay, well then, yes, I would like, yes, it'd be good to have an answer about why there isn't further delineation about being able to use additional factors.
Great, so in my report, I'm gonna ask that we pull this item for discussion, and then if we have the ability, we can strike that and say we no longer need to discuss it. Okay, does that work?
Yes.
Cool. Cool. Is there any other discussion on this item? Excellent. Then we will have promptly lost my agenda. So then we will go to item C7, which is the 2024 sponsorship of Oakland Roots and Soul. And I'm assuming Annie is gonna present on that. Great.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I won't read through the memo, but I'll just try and highlight some key items from this proposal. This is a request for approval for a sponsorship of the next season for Oakland Roots, as well as the Oakland Soul teams. For the Oakland Roots, it's really an extension of a 3-year agreement that just expired. The previous agreement was $125,000 per year. The new agreement for just 1 year is $150,000. This does give us exclusivity to the clean energy partner category, and I think is an appropriate reflection of the growth in their fan base, as well as, thank you, sweetie, please go downstairs, as well as just simply, you know, inflation and the additional costs that we're experiencing now as compared to 3 years ago when we established the original agreement. The Oakland Roots are our last professional sports team, not only in the Oakland area, but in our entire service territory. They started out playing in Oakland. They have been, for the last couple of years, playing down at Cal State East Bay, which is in Hayward. This next season, they will be playing there again, but they will be looking to move to what they call the Malibu lot, which is a modular stadium, which will be located on basically the parking lot area of the Oakland Coliseum. So for this next period, which we're seeking approval, it is just for that time period before they move to the Malibu lot. I want to just note that the Oakland Roots since their origination, has been very focused on their community engagement. They consider themselves a purpose-driven sports team to the extent that they recently did a community ownership drive, and it was very successful. And now we actually have, members of the public owning the team. This partnership with them, pardon me for just one moment, I apologize. Thank you very much. Apologies for that interruption. This partnership continues to offer us a reliable mechanism to really meet people where they are. And I have anecdotally received excellent feedback from people either who already knew who we were and were excited to see us at the game, or used it as an opportunity to tell others about Ava Community Energy. And I think that, this continued expenditure is well warranted given their growing fan base and their growing social media following, as well as just the alignment in their sort of mission and goals. It's very well aligned with Ava Community Energy. And the final point I'll make is just that, this is a marketing expenditure with the objective of marketing to expand awareness and really help facilitate customer adoption of beneficial decarbonization programs, as well as the other benefits offered by Ava Community Energy. And I didn't really speak to Soul in my points, I should have. It is only their second season, but it is the USL Women's Club, and there is a portion of funds, $46,000, to help grow and sort of launch that league, as well as this team, which has great enthusiasm from little soccer players, maybe some that are in my household. So with that, I will pause for your questions.
Thank you, Annie. We will turn first to see if there are members of the public who have submitted written comment or online with their hands raised.
There are no hands raised at this time. There's no written public comment.
Thank you. We'll turn to public comment in the room.
Jessica, Local Clean Energy Alliance, and on behalf of East Bay Clean Power Alliance. In the past, we actually opposed to the $375,000 to the sports team, mostly because the agency had not given such a large amount of money before. And also because we have not seen that much money come to community efforts around energy equity and resilience. And just noting that there's been a huge emphasis, again, on heavy marketing of the agency than actual action taken, specifically for marginalized communities, disadvantaged communities, environmental justice communities, and specifically the fact that we've been asking for community innovation grants for community-based organizations. So while I respect you, Annie, and the efforts for this agency to need to market itself, I just think it's really inappropriate that this kind of marketing has come before actual needs of the community. So I want to say that. I'm a huge sports fan in general. I enjoy going out and supporting, my favorite teams. But because of that, I have to say that it's just really feels insulting, actually. So I'll leave you with that. I'll have more to say on Wednesday.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public with their hands raised?
There's no members of the public with their hands raised.
Excellent. All right, so we'll move now to CAC member comments. Is there anyone online who wishes to raise their hand? All right, seeing none, is there members of the CAC in the chambers who wish to make comment? Member Lutz?
Yeah, I would support Jessica's comments that the marketing funding for marketing seems so much easier and quicker to approve than funding for community innovation or community resilience or community local development benefits in general. So that's sort of hard to take. I don't expect you to answer that, Annie, because you're not on the, your budget is your bailiwick is marketing, not the relation between marketing and local development. So that's one concern. The other question I do have for you, Annie, is why does the men's team get 3 times the amount of money as the women's team?
The women's team only has a handful of home games. I believe last year it was 5 or 6 compared to the men's that has a full season agenda. The women's team is, though they are USL, it is not considered a fully professional league, and their fan base following number of home games, sort of the marketing value is not yet there, as this was just their inaugural season this past year. But that is also why we are committing to them to help them grow and expand.
So it's based on their newness, not on the size of the crowds that are attending?
It is partly based on the fact that they have fewer games, so there are fewer opportunities to engage with in-game activations, in-game field boards, and other advertising.
And how many fewer games? Is it the third?
I know last season, I don't think they've actually released their schedule for this season, but I can tell you last year they had only 5 or 6 home games.
And how many did the men's have?
Oh, geez.
Oh, 5 or 6 home games. So
home games. Yeah, the men had, I'm saying this off the cuff, but I would say approximately 20 home games.
Jim, I was just asking to clarify. Keep going.
That was it.
That was it. All right. Member Pacheco?
I'll just say I'm a little bit contradicted on my feelings about this. I share Ms. Tavar's expressions that this is a large sum of money. And where we've had previous discussions, this is part of the larger issue of our reserve funds and how much money is allocated towards community grants and the local business development plan. And this feels like a large chunk of money within the context of what I know that myself and some other CAC members feel is not enough money being put towards the local business development plan, or we would like to see larger amounts, and the community innovation grants. And that said, I say I'm conflicted because I actually like the Roots. I've been to a game, and with the loss of one of our professional, well, 2 of our professional teams here in the East Bay, and possibly the loss of a 3rd, it is good to have a professional sports team. And so I'm probably going to end up voting for this, but I do want to echo what I think, at least part of what both Jim and Mr. Barr were saying, that in the context of what we feel should be larger allegations going to some other things, this feels like a big chunk, and it feels funny. Doesn't feel so good. Thanks.
I have a question. Cynthia, do you? No? Okay. So Annie, thank you so much for laying that out. I really am resonating a lot with what you say, and love soccer. I love soccer. I do think it's a pretty big social equalizer. In this, though, in the budget, does this money fall under marketing or community investment?
It is marketing, and it's budget that has already been approved.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, so I still have an issue with this. I really do believe in doing this. It's great that it's coming out of the marketing budget and not the community investment budget. I do want to say that we have like that much money is for community investment grants, or half as much money and a staff member to manage the investments in the community that staff keeps saying that we don't have the staff to administer. So it's in the marketing budget, so it's supposed to be used for marketing. But I do just really want to pull that out. Is there a proposal on this item? Anyone want to support or not? Does anyone want to oppose? Yeah, go for it.
Like, what other tier options are there besides being the clean energy sponsor, whatever the name of the,
Sorry, Jessica, do you mind going up to the microphone? I'm not able to.
Yeah,
hear.
sorry. I guess it's like an emotional reaction to things, but my question is, besides having this label of clean energy supporter or whatever it was, what other options? Like, are there other tiers, other amounts of money that the agency could give to support that is not 100 and whatever it is, 1,000? That's my question.
Yeah, there are certainly other amounts that we could sponsor. We felt that this level gave us the exclusivity of the clean energy partner. There are perhaps other utilities, one in particular, that would gladly step in. But the Roots have been our partner for years and are honoring that by reserving this exclusivity for us at this level. So there are other options, but after an assessment, we felt that this held the most value. And there's, I think, both in our ongoing partnership with them, what they bring in terms of sort of regular, reliable, direct access with community members, a good sort of cross-section of customers that we can engage with and have exposure to, so that they start to see and recognize ABA Community Energy and understand the benefits. And then that category exclusivity, we feel holds a lot of value.
I have a question.
Go for it. There are 17 home games, by the way.
Okay. Our energy budget is approaching $1 billion a year for procuring energy. What's the marketing budget and how many staff are involved in that per year? And what's the local development budget and how many staff are involved in that?
I can speak really quickly to budget, Annie, if you'd like.
Please go ahead, Howard.
For this fiscal year, it's just a really quick summary of some high-level items. We're a little over $900 million, a little over $930 million for operating revenue. Our marketing budget's about $5.3 million. I'll let Annie maybe comment on the head count, but before jumping there, our local development funding is roughly 22.5, though I think that number has actually increased. So I'm just looking at a slightly stale version. So I'm going to say it's more like $23 or $24 million, but we're close there. And I do want to distinguish, these are different departments. And so while I certainly appreciate the comments from the CAC and the public, I do want to make sure to distinguish, we are talking about two different areas when we're talking about sort of local development, innovation grants and things like that. We certainly know there's a strong interest and focus there. But these are two different line items. As an agency, of course, we do need to put sufficient funds towards marketing protocol and things like that. We're a large agency, and having just done a rebranding, it is critical that we are known by our customers. It improves our ability to have impact on all things, including local development funding.
All right. We're going to do one last call. Is there a motion to support or oppose, or is everyone going to abstain on this anyways?
I speak in favor of abstention.
Okay. All right. No motion. Jessica, do you want this item pulled for discussion at the board meeting?
Yeah, I think we should.
Great. Okay. We'll turn that in. It will be pulled. Cool. All right. So since that is done, we are going to, yep.
Can I clarify,
You have to bring the microphone to your mouth or people can hear
thank
you.
you for reminding me of this. I was curious on the previous item, C6. Oh, we can't go back?
No, but I'm positive that staff or myself would be happy to help answer any questions on your.
It's not about the item, the factual stuff, the item, but what we're supposed to vote on.
We don't have to vote on that item. It's on the consent agenda, and so we don't.
You answered.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so, holy cow, we're gonna get out on time. All right, so we are moving on to item C8, CAC member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future CAC agendas that we have not already heard. So we do have a running list. Is there public comment on this item?
There are no hands raised at this time.
No. Okay.
Is there a public list of items that are the running list so we can see what's on and what's not?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So what we can do is bring that list back up, and I can send it out, or we can.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do keep a list.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you ask.
So oftentimes we're just responding to what's happening in the board's agenda. We are trying to get to some of the other things as they come up, or when an item is being heard, like the budget, we'll take the items that are associated with the budget the first time it's heard before it goes to vote, and have discussions around those items so we can formulate it with as much information as possible and when it's right or timely, right? So, and then when we have space in the agenda, we go through and see what other things can be brought up, which is like how we contacted you for your presentation. It's like,
Right.
aha, we can do it. Yep.
But I would like to see the list. And I
Absolutely.
understand that it's not just tick them off in chronological order.
When did that be?
In
Robin?
response to what's on the board agenda. And
We'd have to
I-
have an additional meeting a month to do that.
Yeah.
So,
But I'd like to know what's cooking.
yep. And, yep, Ernie?
Just one comment on something that is on that list that I would like maybe we do for that community. I think it should be high on the list is getting more detailed accounts of community hours worked on our PLAs and the projects that this agency has financed, and with additional information about breaking down about unions
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sure,
Sorry.
sorry, Mickey. What I was saying was that this is an ongoing thing that we've been asking for. It's on the list of items, and I was asking that the chair could possibly report back that one of the priorities be a more detailed accounting of the man hours worked that have been created by the agency's projects and contracts, with additional information that like breaks down whether it was union workers or not, and even what unions or locals got work on those projects.
Great, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Go for it.
Yes, I would like to have that list also, and I concur with Member Pacheco's comments just now. And I would like to see a timeline. I mean, I don't know if we have gone through, I don't know how many of those items we've actually gone through that we have requested, staff assistance with or an update on. And I'd like to see a timeline when those various requests can be addressed.
Since we requested the labor hours, we have not received any support from staff.
Well, if I may say this in all due respect.
We have to keep this to items that you would like on the agenda.
Well, I'd like to see a follow-up on what you just
Yep.
mentioned, because
Yep, that is actually part of the working group that we're supposed to have. That is part of the working group we're supposed to have. We just staff haven't had the availability to work with us yet, and yes, absolutely. I will put that on the list.
Sorry, I also wanted to make a comment and a clarification. Staff has been responsive to the request. We have provided information as it is available. The request does often go into a level of granularity that is not readily accessible and would take significant time to acquire. That has been communicated, and what is available has been shared. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. All right. Any other items? Member Susan?
Yeah, thank you. Recently, we spoke about the new NEM policies on solar. I think it just really comes at a bad time that they're reducing the benefits for rooftop solar. And I think they're looking at multifamily solar cuts as well. And I would like to explore if there's any maybe resources that Ava Community Energy could put towards kind of dampening that loss and helping the community to once again take interest and offset some of these negatives towards community rooftop solar.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any other items? All right, great. With that, we are going to wish you all a really wonderful winter holiday and a fantastic U.S. New Year, and New Year's for lots of places, but not all of them. And it's really, really hard out right now. and a lot of people are having an exceptionally challenging time. And there seems to be a propensity at the moment to turn people into cartoon bad guys or cartoon good guys and sort of flatten out the complexity of things that are happening. And I really want to encourage everyone to be patient with themselves and patient with others around them. We don't know the challenges that they're facing. They don't know the challenges that we're facing. And things are generally more nuanced than it may appear. So I hope that whatever happens in the winter for you, whether that is a happy or a sad time, whether the ending of this year is a relief, because wowza, it was a bugger, or it is closing the chapter on something that, and it feels sad. Whatever is happening, I wish you all individually and collectively well. You're beautiful people, and you spend a lot of hard work and energy trying to create something better for the world in a time of absolute climate crisis. And even if we all have different concepts of how to get there, we are all advocating for that path as best as we can. And I feel great respect for every one of you. And with that, we are going to close the Community Advisory Committee for AVA Community Energy for 2023. And we will adjourn, and we will meet again on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
Bye, everybody.
Wow.